Right. Yay. Okay. Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to Smudcast number 415. Joker Isn't That Deep. And it's been a while since we covered Joker, but people like to talk about it. This is a 2-year-old video, so at the time it was probably hot. But this was by WULFF DEN, and he is a 650,000 subs YouTuber. He has about 34,000 views on this video. And his like-dislike ratio is in the middle. So I'm going to assume he says some stuff he doesn't like about the movie.
Oof.
Yeah. Now, from the title, it's like Joker Isn't That Deep. I don't think people were expecting to be that deep in general. Or what?
I didn't think anyone expected to be deep at all.
Yeah. And there were some moments where there's some non-dialogue scenes where you're like, what's going on here? What's happening? What does that mean? Like when he's dancing, it's like, oh, this is a form of celebration. He's feeling good despite all his depression and all his weird moods he's got.
I like the bus scenes. They were done well.
There's all kinds of great cinematography in the film. The mood is kind of sporadic. It's not clearly the same in every scene, but that might throw people off from a watching experience. But the feeling was pretty exciting in general. Not throughout the entire film. Obviously, there's lots of slow moments, but near the end, last 30 minutes, I would imagine, got to people a bit more. So, this is only an 11-minute video. It won't take that long to cover, but this is a Batman fan, so obviously he has his very clear viewpoint of what the Joker is and what Batman is, and might influence his views of cinematography and film and storytelling. I don't know. We'll find out. Anyway, this is by, as I said, Wolf. I don't know how to pronounce that. WULFF DEN.
Just Wolf.
Wolf? Okay. All right. I thought it was a German thing, but never mind.
No. The German word for wolf is written like the English word for wolf.
Lovely. Okay.
We just say Wolf.
Oh. That was a V in there or something.
No, it's a W. We pronounce the W like you pronounce a V.
Ah, all right.
The V we pronounce either like a V or like an F.
Interesting. Okay. And in case you guys don't know, we have Cyric on board. Thanks, Cyric, for popping on at the last minute. Always nice to have you.
Thank you.
Okay. So here we go. 11 minutes. Hopefully everyone is in the watch together. I can't quite tell. No one's completely green, so I see a bunch of whites, but that's okay. Anyway, let's go.
It's been a little over 2 years since I did my very first video talking about how Warner Brothers wants to do a solo Joker movie. In that time frame, I've been very open about my feelings toward this project, mostly because I haven't been super into the idea. But because I have no say in Hollywood, here we are in 2019 with Joker, from the director of Road Trip and the Hangover trilogy. A lot has been said about this movie already, even before its official release.
Yeah, that was a surprise to me that this prior comedy maker made this kind of movie.
Well, there's a specific reason that he did it. He felt like the way comedy was going, it wasn't good to make comedy anymore, so he made a movie about a comedian that wasn't funny, even though he considered himself funny.
Oh yeah, so that is where it's deep. That's the meta of the movie. But even that aside, I think it shows the range this director really has. That he can't just. It's not that he can only make shallow comedies.
Right. So the premise is that he is a. How would we describe the character of Joker in the film? He is not down on his luck. He just sort of has issues that he doesn't know what to do with. And he's not sure if it's because of a mental condition or the medication he's taking or his relationship with his mother.
He doesn't know he doesn't know how he wants to overcome his problems, and he is struggling, he is fighting, but he just doesn't he can't make headway.
Right.
He can't get through the brick wall.
And there's a lot of moments where you're like, it's kind of not depressing, but it's kind of not cringy, but you're like, oh, geez, that's sad. And it just keeps, every other scene is kind of like that. But that's the whole point. Like, that's kind of the idea of the film. And it's not depressing for the sake of being depressing. It's sad as a result of this guy pushing himself, and he keeps getting knocked down. So, in a sense, it's kind of like a heroic story, but in a much darker way. Anyway,
let's see. He's becoming is he an anti-hero?
It depends what he's trying to do as heroic. Does he constantly struggle against something and choose a better solution for himself? In some ways, yes. The result of that is violence, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, he is embracing himself at some point, and in that finding confidence and strength. However, that is, as you describe, it's a horrible result.
Yeah.
Although up until that point, he tried to make everything good. It just that nobody really who could have helped him did, or cared enough, or let him.
Yeah, and that was the case with was it the dispensary or just his consultant that came in to make sure he's okay, and saying these drugs don't work or this or that. It's like, yeah, she's just doing her job. She can't really help him.
I honestly don't believe that the movie takes place in his head. It was just no,
not the entire movie, but just parts of it.
The Joker stuff, the actual stuff when he's becoming the Joker. But I still don't believe it.
No, that part I believe is real, because we are entering Gotham City in the way it is.
Yes.
But for example, the beginning scene where he's at what was his name? The show host.
All I remember was it was played by oh god, what was his name? De Niro.
Right.
That's the only thing I remember.
Robert De Niro was the show host. I forget his name though. You got me there.
Yeah.
Murray Franklin.
It's a typical.
Which by the way, nice casting choice. I can respect that.
Murray Franklin. Yeah.
And anyway, that first time he was there, that was his imagination, and the movie frames it obvious enough that it's in his mind. That first time where he's in the audience and show host is calling him down and praises him and stuff. Yeah, it's obvious that's his daydream. Because the way it cuts back after that, the way the lighting is different, such scenes, when you do it well, it's often indicated through subtle things, like you shoot it a little different, you have the lighting different, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Another giveaway is the way he laughs is very different from everyone else. It's like at least a couple people would give him a glance. It's like, oof, that's how he laughs. But not even that.
Yeah. So, whoever believes the entire movie's in his head, that's nonsense. That you didn't pay attention at the movie, and anyone who thinks that everything's real also didn't pay attention.
Yeah, it's like people say that everything except the conversation with his social worker, whatever she is, it's like that everything that it's just all a story that he's telling her. I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
No.
They point to
what movie are people watching?
People have told me that. I'm just like, really?
No, they point
there's a whole bunch of giveaways saying that that's not the case. I'm just like, wow.
Yeah. Just
people having weird theories.
Yeah, the only consistent thing I think were the time on the wall of every room that he goes to. The clock's always the same time or something like that, which is just coincidental. You could say it means...
I just chalk that up to coincidence. Straight up.
It's not relevant. Unless there's a connection that we can see. I can't see it, so...
Yeah, the only thing that's truly in his head is what Wisp brought up earlier, of him being on the show, where it's and then just him thinking he's acting normal when he's not. That's the only thing that's in his head.
Yeah, and of his the neighbor that he is starting to have a relationship with.
Yeah, he's
that as well, and there's a much earlier, before everything else breaks down.
Yeah,
there's a revelation about that.
The movie makes it absolutely clear that yes, he's having hallucinations, but in terms of the transition over the course of the movie of him becoming the Joker persona, that's all real. That is real.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you can't. If anyone tries to deny that, they're not seeing the point.
Yeah,
Let's go.
So the meaning of things is based on the narrative, how it's viewed, and trying to, your mind goes, that's what's actually happening. I thought it was something else. Like that is a simple perception that we had of the reality that we're given. So films do this a lot, usually in basic examples of perspective. So what was that latest film with Adam Driver? He's some medieval knight dude. And there's Ben Affleck.
I don't know.
And Matt Damon as well. And it's told in 3 parts, and from their perspective. It just came out, or it is coming out rather. I saw a review
Really?
a week ago or so. Yeah. And
I thought I'd see those 3 in the same movie.
Yeah, Adam Driver in a medieval knight sword fighting usurper sort of scenario. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting because it tells the story from their perspective in 3 parts, which is great. So
exactly,
yeah,
it's like the thing with this movie, Joker. It's like the certain details being just off in a couple places where we know it's reality, but there's things that are just inconsistent. You can probably just chalk that up to Arthur's like hallucination problem and just like write it off like that, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
The big focal point that I can think of where that becomes very obvious is whenever he's at the comedy show and all of a sudden the lighting of it changes and it cuts away after he tells his joke and then it just goes on to his normal life. Like you don't ever get to see until later on in the movie what actually was going on with the comedy show.
Oh, like the stand-up act?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're right.
The thing that you can argue about, because I think it's I'd say the movie is clear enough, but also at the same time it's a bit fast rushing through it. What the revelation is with his mother and the whole backstory of
Like the whole thing
who's his real father.
The whole thing with Thomas Wayne, yeah.
Yeah, is she his? So is Thomas Wayne his actual biological father? And what was done to him in his childhood? Because it seems like the abuse by his mother gave him his mental issues.
Indeed.
Okay, let's get back to this guy's opinion.
Yeah.
This past weekend, some have praised it for dramatic work of art, and others have vilified it for being a potential rallying cry for just the worst kind of people. Now, because I'm a massive Batman fan, I just knew I was going to see this movie in theaters. There's just no 2 ways about it, even despite my misgivings. And because I'm an adult, I was willing to give it the benefit of the doubt.
I just like the way this guy speaks. Because I'm an adult. Okay, bye. Relax.
Like his inflections, and it's like, and again, it's like it's real for me. At least for me, it's really fucking funny that people complained about Joker's like the issues that they thought it was going to cause. It's funny that Frozen 2 came out at the same time, and that one actually I did have people like fighting over it.
Yeah,
that had knife stabbings.
Yes,
or was it the machete?
Like, funny how that works.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy.
Yes, that actually did happen.
The alleged white supremacist incel movie. No. That was fun.
And yet, the Disney movie is the one that had people like fighting over it and like stabbing each other, it's like beating each other down.
Are you surprised? It's a movie for girls. It's all emotions.
I'm not. I'm not at all.
And yeah, I'm okay. I'm gonna skip about the worst people possible because, well, at least the Nazis didn't put people on lung heart machines to harvest their organs and keep them fresh if they needed more.
Okay, to go back to the video, it's like, is it fair to say that Joker ended up? Obviously, it wasn't going to be at first, but that it ended up being a kind of a commentary for the very thing that people complained that it was going to cause. Is that fair to say? Because the reason why it happens in Joker is for a very specific reason. It's to rise up against the system. At least for me. I don't know Like, if there's
You
anything
can
else
say-
behind it.
Yeah, you can say that. I think the points are there. They are also a bit I don't want to say ham-fisted, blunt maybe. But
I'd say blunt. Yeah.
the movie doesn't really illustrate that enough. I'd say that the how all the crap in Gotham affects everything, and how that is a failure of the rich and powerful, really, who could solve the things, who could do something. Maybe it's deliberately subtle in that. I mean, Gotham at this time has some giant mutant rat problem, and you see the rats going around. Like, you have the garbage bags everywhere. So apparently the garbage collection isn't even working in the city anymore. You got the incessant crime, and the social services are cut down, which is what leads to the creation of Joker. So Joker, by all means, is a creation of Thomas Wayne's failure
and the failure of the system in general.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it illustrates the consequences of it, but at the same time, the actions that he takes after the fact, the rioting and all that, like getting together with the riots, establishing the image of the riots, it shows it, but it very clearly doesn't encourage that behavior because it's with cause that it's happening.
And the interesting thing is, he's not doing that deliberately. He's just he just happened to be the face that the riots could model themselves after.
Yeah.
And that's part of also because the news propped him up like that.
Especially after
you got copycat actors, and out of
the
that,
assassination,
and out of that grew the larger riots. And at the end, he himself, that's the finale. He is adopted by the rioters, the clown rioters, and taken up like a saint. So he is made their king, you could say, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah, he ends up getting roped into it, but at the end of the day, he ends up embracing it wholeheartedly.
Yeah, because, hey, he's found his people, if you will.
Yeah, he's found his... from a certain point of view, you could say he's found his purpose in life. Something that finally gives him that that motivation to keep going, in a way.
Yeah, and so the movie ends there. We don't know what he's really doing. We know he is taken to an asylum afterwards. But that aside, because that's then probably supposed to cut into the normal Joker plot line. But that aside,
I wouldn't be surprised if they tie this movie into like the new Batman movie, The Batman, with Robin Pattinson.
I don't know.
It could work.
I don't know.
Supposedly, this movie takes place in 1981, so it wouldn't be too far off to think that.
Yeah, I mean, what's Arthur's age in this movie? Like 30s?
Mid-30s.
Mid-30s. So it's like, I mean, I don't. Well, in any other version of the Joker isn't stopped by his age. So, I mean, if they put it in modern day, he'd be in like his early to mid 60s. But even then, he was pretty much that old in Dark Knight Returns. So that it still wouldn't stop him. Just saying.
All right. Are they working on a sequel to Joker? I don't even know.
Yes, they are.
Wow.
Ooh.
We haven't gotten much information about it, but we've been told that it's in pre-production right now.
Okay.
I honestly hope
Phoenix?
it's as good as the first. It should be, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
with Joaquin.
Interesting.
I hope it's good. I hope it's even better than the first movie.
Yeah, that will be interesting. And
I mean, the first movie on its own is really damn good, surprisingly.
yeah, and I like that it is for more parts quiet and takes time. Let's things play out, give you time to breathe. Unlike most of Hollywood's movies, especially in the Marvel and DC brackets. So this is, I would say, this is an actual movie.
All right.
In the sense of go to the cinema and I'm not just on a roller coaster of action and drama and stuff, but just something that is engaging and immerses and also makes me think.
Here is White Knight Leo. Thank you, sir, for the 2. So the message is that the press is the problem?
No,
Not
it's
really.
part of the problem. Every element in Gotham plays a part to create the situation. It is neglect by the top tier. It is the destitute doing what the destitute do, because out of necessity, in part, and because if there's no law enforcement or not enough, then crime rises anyway. So that's also contributing to it. And then you have the press propping up the crime, and in this case, giving a face to a movement that was before that wasn't even a movement, but just individuals. But now they have a symbol. The press gave them a symbol.
Which is another big problem in the real world. Whenever these out of nowhere mass shootings happen, they end up putting all the attention on the shooter, which is a big problem in and of itself.
Mm.
And this movie, in its own way, shows the consequences of putting attention on an individual like this.
Yeah, and you can even make the argument that post this movie, where Joker now has his faithful followers who do his bidding, also would help him execute his maniacal plans, that he even has a point at showing at putting the city into Zugzwang, into forced moves. Because by him acting out so hard, finally there needs to be done something as a response to clean up the city. Because he's just you could say Joker in this context is just the culmination of everything that went wrong in the city, and he's biting back. He's biting back at random, seemingly, but he is. And that just makes everything worse. So even now, the rich and powerful act and bring order back to the city, or they don't. And we see this manifested later in the face of Batman, Bruce Wayne. Because his father apparently didn't.
I like the use of the word Zugzwang, because that's what I used to pronounce it as a kid.
Yeah.
Zugzwang. It's a German word.
I know. When I was a kid playing chess, you had no idea what that meant. But anyway.
Yeah, just to end this point, the whole thing with him now post this movie is that he is the result of the consequences of everything wrong with the city and the system, and he knows it. And is his main motivation to keep this going for as long as he can, just to prove that, yes, the system is wrong, and I'm going to try to show that to the whole world. That's pretty much what he's going to go for. And I hope the sequel goes in a very good direction with that. With that said, let's keep going.
All right.
And wait until I actually saw the film before a final opinion. Well, now the movie is out and I have seen it, so I can finally tell you that I think it was just okay. I guess. And honestly, that's the most disappointing thing about Joker. Spoilers ahead. So right off...
You can only be disappointed if you had expectations. I went into the movie with none.
Bat, let me just say that on every technical level, Joker is incredible. The craftsmanship on display here is truly second to none.
Does he mean every visual technical level? The sound technical level? What is he talking about here?
Yeah, he means all the everything outside the writing, I would guess.
Okay. All right.
Which I think often doesn't get enough praise, if you ask me. Because the MCU movies look great. Look amazing. even those with a little bit cheaper CGI.
And
but
slightly worse writing.
The writing falls flat on its nose. And if we excuse bad writing with good visuals and good props, like the Disney Star Wars stuff, technically amazing. Writing? Can you please burn this? And that's an important distinction, because right now Hollywood can do everything in an amazing fashion except the writing, which should be honestly the easiest part, because for that you only need writers. You don't need any. You don't need a. Yes, good writing isn't easy. Okay, but you don't need any craftsman skills with hard materials or anything. You don't need to learn to be a tailor master. You don't need to become a software engineer or 3D modeler or something. You only need to know how to write, and all you need for that is a pen and some paper. That's the only tools you need.
All right, here is Great Scott. Thank you for the tip. I think there's some measure of depth to Joker, and definitely raise some interesting yet controversial topics and a lot of parallels to real life. I wouldn't say it's on the depth levels of a film like Inception, but it's certainly better than the DCEU. Well, that's the funny thing, is when this came out, this sort of small budget little film, well, comparatively speaking with the rest of the DCEU, it did very, very well.
This movie was released like during the big shift for the DCAU where it was getting slowly but surely better.
Yeah, I would say in general, DC should have, after seeing this, they should have just changed their whole pitch to this kind of depiction of their universe, away from chasing after Marvel, because we don't need two Marvels.
Well, I think Shazam was on this, not the same vein, but on a similar track as Joker.
Oh yeah, it stayed very basic, and it kept its lightheartedness in, and I thought Shazam was a pretty solid movie for the most part. It has one or two flaws, that if you consider it to be the kids movie, that's the standard kids tropes that come up there. You still could have mitigated that. Shazam goes through the whole. Most of the movie is basically Shazam's montage, just over half an hour of him trying to figure out what powers do I even have, how do I use them, how do I not fuck it up, and which is great, it's fun. And at the end of the movie, in the end fight, all his friends get Shazam powers, because that's how he figured out, that's how we beat them. Let's give everyone powers. But all his friends who are Shazammed, every one of them has one specific power, but they all instantly know how to perfectly use it. That's one of the few real notable flaws in Shazam.
I mean, maybe he just transferred the knowledge of the powers to them.
Yeah, but now you have to headcanon fill it in. That's stupid.
That is kind of stupid. But other than that,
but I mean, this looks like a plot hole. It's a standard trope that you have in movies, and it's power of friendship stuff. It's an adaptation of that. And really, that's one of the very few real complaints I would have about Shazam. Otherwise, it fits perfectly into a more serious DCEU that stays grounded. It has these superpower things going on, but it still stays grounded. And the problems the heroes face are also rather grounded stuffs, like saving people from falling off a Ferris wheel. That's the big fight at the end. That's one of the worst things that happens.
Yeah, in my personal opinion, it was kind of a weird choice to have Dr. Savannah be Shazam's first villain, but I'm just like, yeah, it's like Dr. Savannah was a pretty decent fit for trying to keep the movie as grounded as possible while still doing the superhero stuff.
Yeah, and I think it was also fitting that you had some Megamind type jokes in there that are movie-aware subversions, which is the reason why I have a bit of a bigger problem with this solution at the end of everyone's a superhero now. Like the counter to that is the scene where Shazam and the villain chase each other, flying around the buildings, and then the villain gives his villain speech, but he's 200 meters away, and Shazam can't really hear him because he's so far away, and it's just tiny noises.
Yeah, I love that scene, by the way.
Yeah, it's wonderful. That's the kind of humor that was in Megamind that is subverting this whole nonsense.
That was a fantastic subversion of the whole like villain, like the speeches kind of trope.
Yeah, and that's why I would have liked this at the end, that if that hadn't been there, because they're fighting against the incarnations of the seven sins, super demons that eat people. Yeah, that's kind of high tier, and you just zapped from level 0 to you have 1 superpower now. It's stretching it a bit.
Other than that, the movie was also pretty much faithful to the original Shazam mythos as well.
Yeah, I loved it.
At least the basic crux of the origin story, the wizard summoning Billy to his realm and giving him the powers, it's like straight up. It's like, okay, that's pretty faithful to the origin story. And they give it an additional spin of it being in the modern world. It's like Billy now would definitely ask some kind of question like, who are you? What is this place? And they pretty much do that.
Yeah, because modern world is all kids grow up with all of these stories known, with video games, with video game logic. If a kid today gets summoned into magical fantasy world with wizard, the kid knows stuff. So our kids today would be prepared to be isekai'd.
Yeah, I do like that Billy does grasp the general idea of the whole like wizard thing, the Shazam powers, all that. So he only really asks about the specifics.
Yeah,
because the general idea is there.
Yeah, kids 30, 40 years ago wouldn't necessarily, not this many. A few nerd kids might, but that's it. And today, every kid, I'd say. But yeah, Shazam, good movie. Watch it.
It's pretty good.
Here's Matthew Valente. Joker is not part of the DCEU. It's independent. Yeah, I think we were aware of that. It's something different.
Yeah, that was confirmed.
Yeah.
Because if you look at Snyder Cut Justice League, it's still Jared Leto in there.
Yeah. Oh God.
I mean, to be fair, it was just for the one. It was just for the one scene. Okay, I can forgive it.
Yeah, no, it's just another scene, and no, fuck off.
We live in a society.
This thing here, I think this Joker movie would be a great foundation for a more grounded DC universe in a way that might work. It may be more difficult with the more wacky villains later on, but this is a great start with a great atmosphere that is not chasing after Marvel and not doing the super edgy Snyder nonsense. Because the thing is, when you chase after someone else's version of something, you are never gonna get better than that. You're always gonna be behind. It's very rare that you're gonna surpass that other, that you're gonna make that be better at the thing that someone else invented. Yes, that can happen, but as a multi-million-dollar company, just do your own thing. And Joker is the proof that you can.
Okay, let's keep going.
For one thing, this film just looks flat out amazing. Every frame is crafted with such care and intent. Any image from this movie could be its own poster. Even the scene of Robert De Niro and Mark Maron just staring at each other. Everyone in this movie is giving a career best performance. We've already heard a lot about Joaquin Phoenix's portrayal of the Joker, but to actually see it on the big screen is really a sight to behold. The editing is smart and inventive. The soundtrack is very effective, with the exception of one song, which we'll get to a little bit later. And the overall look and feel is just unbelievable. Joker actually feels like an old 80s crime movie, like these Scorsese movies it's trying to emulate. It captures that feeling.
It does take place in the 80s.
Well. It is without a doubt a very well crafted film. You'll get no argument from me with regards to the way it was made. It's just that the story, characters, tone, and intent of the picture don't really work all that well.
Okay, that's an interesting argument to make, the intent of the picture. I don't know what the director had in mind, but if he said, I'm going to make an action-packed Joker flick, and you're like, oh, well, that's obviously not what you did. And you could fault it for that premise, saying, I'm going to do this, but it ends up being that. However, you'd still say, well, what am I actually watching? It's not what the author intended. It's something else. So what did the author intend? I'm not exactly sure, but we'd still measure it on its merits of what it's trying to be, which is, to me, is the same thing. So whether the author says, I'm going to do X, but ends up going, nah, we'll just do Y, doesn't really bother me.
As a result, the movie ultimately fail in what it sets out to do. Joker doesn't want to be a typical comic book movie. We already knew this. It wants to be more like a movie like Taxi Driver or The King of Comedy. A dark and gritty character study of a mentally unstable man going off the rails. But it doesn't offer anything new or unique to say about this particular trope, about comic book movies in general, or about the character of the Joker. If you've seen one movie like this, you can pretty much guess where this movie is going to head. If this movie wasn't called Joker, if it truly was divorced from the DC license, then it would just be another average film about a mentally unstable man who goes off the deep end one day. But by attaching itself to the pedigree of the Joker, one would expect it to have something to say about comic book supervillains and their true appeal. But
wait, why would it do that?
I don't know where he's going with this.
Why does it have to be?
Why?
Why does the Joker have to be a comic book supervillain in this context? Why can't you just tell a origin story or a guy just getting by? Why does it have to be?
I kind of don't get his point here.
Yeah, it's like, oh, because it's with the DCEU, or because it's not with the DCEU, it should be something like it. You're like, wait, no, it shouldn't. It should be its own thing. And
it is its own thing.
Yeah, and I'm not sure the premise that he thinks the director wanted to go with is the same as what the director wanted to go with. I'm quite sure about that, because you don't see Joker as the supervillain in this story. Quite the opposite. He just seems like a really sad, depressed dude trying to get by and figuring out he's got problems that he didn't know. So
he's basically rising from the ashes of his old self and embracing something new in his life.
And
he really wanted to be basic with it.
And thing is, the origin of the Joker is always up for debate, because his story changes on how he became who he is.
Exactly. It's a legitimate plot point, and no matter what version of the DC universe you look at, and they even kind of like do a wink and nod to that in this movie with Arthur telling the story of everything that happens. It's like that. It's like, yeah, it's a point of contention of what actually created the Joker.
Yeah, there's also the comic that where Batman sits on the big chair.
The Mobius chair.
And asks it, who is the Joker? And the revelation blows his mind, because it's not just one person.
Yeah, it literally asks him which one.
All right.
The chair answered back, which one?
Yes, it's and like a moron, he doesn't sit back down on the chair. It's like, who are the three Jokers? That's it. That's a file. But it's like, the point is, like, the way the Joker comes about is always different, no matter what version you look at. The most common, and I think you can all agree with me, the most common is the one where he gets set up for a crime he isn't guilty for. He gets a dome put on him. And then he makes Batman think it's the Red Hood, and then he accidentally falls into the vat of acid at Ace Chemicals, and it just turns his skin white and his hair green, and then he just goes nuts. That's the most common one. But even that one is possibly not true.
Yeah, because that's also from The Killing Joke.
Yeah. I remember off the top of my head, I remember like some of the animated movies. I know Arkham used it. It's maybe DCEU, that might be the case there too, I don't know. But it's like it's you never know with the Joker, and that's the wild card aspect of his character. It's left up to individual interpretation. It's left up to interpretation how he came about. And to this day, it's still a mystery.
All right. So, yeah, just talk about supervillains. I'm like, dude, your bias is probably not the best thing to go into a movie with when they're trying to retell or reinvent a character. So, anyway, let's go.
It doesn't really say anything. It subvert our expectations of who the Joker is or what comic book movies could be about. It's really just a comic book movie that's done in a less flashy way than we're used to. And what it does have to say really isn't all that clear. I think Joker is supposed to be about what happens when a man gets betrayed by society and the system and finally goes crazy. I mean, Joker pretty much says that verbatim in the climax of the movie, but I feel like the film wants to have it both ways. It wants to portray Arthur Fleck as a sympathetic man who unwittingly becomes a cult hero while also portraying him as a monstrous villain. And the film waffles back and forth between the two extremes depending on what that particular scene needs at the time. The same goes for the other characters in the movie. Francis Conroy's Penny...
Yeah, did you know some people are not just plain psychopaths, but are complicated and have complex lives and complex reasons?
Yeah,
not everyone.
Nuance.
Yeah, I know I talk about this a damn lot that you could think that I only talk about this and think everyone's a narcissist, but no, that's not the case. Those are just very straightforward people if you understand the topic, the whole range from narcissist to psychopath. Joker isn't that. He's something else. He's a very complex personality that in the end just gives into fuck it all. He's been trying and trying and trying and then fails. He's a product. He is an actual product of society. He's not simply a personality disorder that doesn't understand how to human or lacks a conscience and lacks remorse. He has that. And he has empathy. He has these feelings. He just at the end is so broken that he just says fuck it all. You are not letting me have a not even a bearable life. It's not about a good life. It's not about an okay life. It's that he is not allowed to have a bearable life.
One good example about that in the movie as well is whenever he comes back and he is all beat up because of those kids, one of his coworkers hands him a pistol. And in the beginning, he doesn't want the pistol because it doesn't go, or it goes against everything that he thinks. Like, it's not good to attack people because they're attacking you. You have to handle it a different way. But after pressure, he takes the pistol.
All right.
Penny Fleck is shown to be a very kind, if a woman, before it's revealed she was really abusive toward her son. Brett Cullen's Thomas Wayne is portrayed as a tough, mean-spirited character.
Oh, and then he's also gaslit about the gun. Because the guy who gave it to him sets him up out of fear of being found out that he gave it to him.
Reminder that Thomas and Martha Wayne aren't exactly the saints that Bruce thinks they are. Just look at the Telltale Batman game.
Yeah, to him, to Bruce, they're his parents. And he's, 6 years old or something?
8.
Yeah, of course his parents still have this wonderful aura about them for him. Why wouldn't they?
I mean, why do you think Telltale went the way it did in the first place to actually shed some light on that particular aspect of the backstory?
They stretch a lot of the characters around as well. but that's the nature of the game or the design of the game, to have those multiple endings where if you went this way, you learn more about the Joker. If you went that way, you can save Catwoman, I think, or whatever the ending with her was. So there's lots of, I wouldn't say retcons, but just a lot of retelling of characters in different lights.
Well, no, it's very much its own universe. It's just it's just that particular version of the mythos that tries to shed some light on certain things that most versions don't even think about.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And it's all the better for it.
Yeah, it's an interesting experience. Telltale Batman games. They're basically just adventure games with quick times events. I guess that's about as far as the puzzles go.
Yeah, it's like the old point and click style. It's like it works fine for what it does.
Yep.
And it's like it does still give you a whole. It's like, well, not a whole different perspective, but at least a more slanted perspective on certain aspects of some of the more mainstream incarnations of the mythos. And it's like it really makes you think about a few things.
Yeah, when they have the Joker reinvent or start off as a hero, and it's kind of like, oh, I never thought of that. How would that work? And they play that through.
And putting more emphasis on Harvey Dent before he becomes Two-Face.
Yeah. They do the setup really well for all the details of the backstories of the characters, which is nice. But it does all the branching paths are, whoa, this is crazy. Like it's like they went through all that effort just to tell those, because that's what they do. They tell those stories with all these different alternative endings. So that's a lot of work. And as a narrative-driven game, it's pretty interesting. But at the same time, the gameplay is just walking around using your detective sense, I guess, and QuickTime events. So
doing actual detective work for a change.
Yeah, trying to simulate that. Yeah.
The only time you do it in a mainstream like product is Arkham. But even then,
that's why I kind of joke about the whole detective vision, even in the Arkham games. It's like, God, Batman can just see through walls now. It's like, okay, I guess so. Anyway,
I mean, it isn't that far fetched, but I can see your point.
Yeah, it's like, oh, everyone has the X-ray vision now, even in an adventure title. You're like, okay, I guess.
I mean, part of it was because part of that was like the Nolan influence. I think I forget was it Batman Begins that had that.
Yeah,
like at least something similar.
He could see through walls with, I think it was infrared or heat.
Like a combination of those, yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Arkham definitely took most of its influence from animated and Nolan, to say the least.
Okay, let's go.
Until the scene where he reveals the truth about Arthur. The movie really wants you to hate Thomas Wayne, but by that point, you start to sympathize with him. He's just trying to protect himself and his son from this crazy person who has been stalking them the past few days. Robert De Niro's character, Murray Franklin, is said to be something
again,
of an
Thomas Wayne isn't exactly a saint
his
either.
one-time idol who now acts like a bully towards him. When Joker confronts Murray on his show and berates him, Murray flat out says, "You don't know anything about me," which is true. We don't know anything about him. We, the audience, only know what the Joker sees in Murray, and now we're supposed to sympathize with him right before he dies. Really, the only character you could have any real sympathy for is Zazie Bates' character, but she's not in the movie all that much. And even when she is, we don't really see her. We just see how Arthur sees her for the longest time. We don't see the real her until more than halfway through the movie. And when we do get to see
That's why we can have sympathy with her.
We don't get to see her ever again. Her fate is ultimately left.
No, but that is why we can have sympathy with her.
But that's not a bad thing either. Why? Like, oh, we don't get enough story of her until the ending. It's like, so the story is not about.
We know that she is a neighbor that Arthur made up a story about in his head, unbeknownst to himself, and it concludes in him stepping into her apartment for real, and she being terrified, the real one. That's enough to have sympathy with her. I don't see the problem.
Yeah, this is like saying a secondary, if not tertiary character doesn't get enough screen time, or doesn't have their own story to tell. It's like, you don't need to do that. It's not the point. Kind of weird to get that argument from him. It's like, I want to know more about this character. It's like, why? Why would you care? Because the perception of her was different later in the story. It's like, so what? The perception of main characters are different till the end of the story. That's why they go on an arc. You don't know what they're going to choose. So why would you want that focus on the secondary character? I'm not sure why he's saying that. Anyway.
Left unresolved and ambiguous. We don't know what happens to her. That's part of what I mean about intent. Who are the good guys of this movie? Who are the bad guys?
Why does that matter?
Oh God, you're pathetic.
What a weird argument. Who are the good or bad guys? Like, does every story have to have good or bad guys? Like, completely, unabashedly, one way or the other?
If you need that direct, obvious, blatant lines drawn in the sand, and have it laid out to you like that, you are beneath a child. Even children don't always need that and can figure things out.
Yeah, I remember.
Life. It's a movie about life. Life is complicated. Things aren't black and white.
I seem to remember
They're mixed gray shades of gray.
Was it the G.I. Joe movie? We learned that Cobra Commander had this weird experiment happen to him. He got all these eyeballs popping out of his face. And that's why he always wears the mask. It's like, holy crap, that's gross. Holy shit, what do you do? The rest of the story of why he's evil is this or that is another story. But it's fascinating that we get that show or story about a villain that's just sort of one-dimensional. And he's like, oh no, we have sympathy for the guy. That he's this scientist of sorts. So
we can have sympathy for the being that was before it turned into a monster.
Right, exactly.
We don't need to have sympathy for the monster but we can have sympathy for the person, the being that it was before, because that is gone now as well. That was tortured in some way, and well, it's that good persona is gone. And it's like it's a form. This kind of transition is like a form of death.
Yeah, to say
good Arthur is gone.
Yeah, to focus on the good, the bad. It's like, why can't you have a bunch of great characters? Like, what's wrong with that? Where everyone has their own mixed ethics and they can change all the time. Is that bad storytelling? I don't think so. If they have reason to behave a certain way and then change, that's great storytelling. I want to know why. And they show that. It's like, oh, now he's this way. So is the villain. So is the secondary character. So is the tertiary. Like, why not? Why he's arguing with we don't learn enough about the girl and her story. It's like, well, is she relevant to anything? She was a delusion.
No.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all she was. Not very important.
What we learn about her is that she wasn't real. By meeting the real one.
Yeah. All right. Well, his views of storytelling are a bit limited, let's just say. Or maybe he's applying his concept of comic books that there's a clearly distinct bad guy. And there
if the game isn't telling me that Link is the good guy and Ganon is the bad guy, I don't know who are the good and who are the bad guys.
Yeah, that's a bit weird.
Ooh.
All right.
Sympathy for. The movie doesn't really answer those questions. It just shows us a man doing increasingly violent things. It wants to be something more. It bangs on and on about how the system can keep a person down, how the rich are the real bad guys, but it doesn't offer any solutions or hot takes beyond that. Unless, of course, you count.
The interesting thing is when he's at that demonstration, he's still not really part of it. He's still trying to be part of it, but doesn't really connect. These scenes are brilliantly done. Because the only time Arthur is really part of the thing that he accidentally was a factor in creating is after his quasi-death and rebirth. At the end of the movie where he's lying on that car. Arthur doesn't end up as just a guy in the crowd. And it's not that he's just doing increasingly more violent things. He's slipping into them. Before he starts doing things deliberately, consciously, that takes a long time. Even chasing after the guys with the gun in the train, his first big thing. That's more an affect thing, spur of the moment.
Yeah, that's a good point to the sequel.
That he's indulging in.
If they're going to jump into the future, assuming he has become this other creature, or they're just going to start, a few days or maybe months later, now that he's this newly formed person. And plus that has to ask what happens to Bruce, because Bruce was a kid. So are we going to show him? Is he going to go on training? What the hell is he doing? That would be interesting to know where they're going to take the Joker world and have it become its own have it become its own world. That'd be great. The Joker universe.
I mean, Joker has 15 years time before Batman even shows up to do stuff.
Reasonably older than Batman, yeah.
No, it's more than that.
All right. Oh, sorry. Mad Courier 6. Thanks for the 10. I'm late, boys. What I miss? A very odd critic talking about a topic he should know of very well and not liking it because it doesn't conform to his perception of what a super villain story origin should be. Strange take. So, yeah, we're trying our best.
Murder as a solution, in which case, I guess it does advocate that. That's a pretty hot take. I mean, that would fit very well with the tone of the movie. It is very dark and bleak and depressing. Except, of course, for those few moments when it tries not to be dark and bleak and depressing, and it's just... I don't know what it is. There are certain parts in the movie that try to go for a joke or try to be a little bit more lighthearted, but they clash with everything else that happens in the film.
And what's
I don't think so at all.
When something legitimately funny happens on screen, we don't know how to react to it. The funniest thing that happened during this movie was when my friend Alex texted me this picture. And this is just comedy gold, if you ask me. There's a scene towards the end of the movie that's actually a very good example of this tonal disconnect. By this point in the film, Arthur has done some pretty terrible things, some truly unforgivable things. He finally puts on the Joker makeup and the full costume, and then he dances on the steps to Gary Glitter's Rock and Roll Part 2. It doesn't play like a man becoming a monster. It plays more like the triumphant celebration of a man embracing his true self.
Okay, so dancing down the steps. There's plenty of scenes in the movie where he's dancing, and it's to showcase his maybe even happiness. I don't even know how to characterize it. And that's the last one of him dancing, pretty much, where he's becoming the thing. He's finally not giving into fear and pain anymore, and he's understanding what life is about for him. So that's what an anti-hero or a villain kind of comes to that conclusion. So whether it's a pathetic guy like him or a superhero or a supervillain, is like it's the same idea.
Yeah,
that scene also comes after he takes out one of the people that is bullying him throughout his life.
Mm-hmm.
So you could say he has a sense of relief from that trauma.
Yeah. And I agree with Chad here. I don't think he understands the movie. Or I think his title, Joker Isn't That Deep. I would claim that he thinks that because he can't see the depth of it. He talks in such a superficial manner about the movie that I just don't think he can comprehend it really.
I would argue the film is not that deep from a standard of what depth actually is in storytelling, where you can show scenes and not use dialogue, and the audience can logically figure out what's going on, and there might be something else that they didn't. And that to me is a second layer of meaning. So that's why I like the scenes where he's dancing, and it's like, oh, I think why he's he's dancing as a result of what just happened. So it's like you have to figure out what's going on in his head. I don't need it spelled out, like there's a voice in his head or something telling me what's going on. I don't need that. So I think that's a little bit more sophisticated than just dialogue all the time. So I like that, but obviously he's not into this non-visual.
Not just that. He misses all of it. He just complains about tonal inconsistency, which I didn't get in this movie. I don't think it's tonally inconsistent. The shifts fit. If you understand what's going on, that is. Like the even the bus scene in the beginning, where Arthur makes a little kid laugh behind him. Because he wants to make people laugh. He enjoys that, and as a kid, and he makes the kid laugh, and then the mother is rather it's a silent scene, so there's no dialogue or not much, and the mother just makes him understand that she doesn't want this, so he's a bit depressed about it, and that's how the bus ride goes, as far as I remember, and there's a sweet moment, and then it turns into melancholy. Because despite him having achieved what he wanted, getting a smile out of a kid, that is forbidden to him to do. That's taken from him. And in some way, the movie repeats this kind of pattern a couple times.
Okay.
Well, yeah. Whether he succeeds in what he wants to do or not. But yeah.
All right. Let's go.
Side note, it was at that point I realized I actually haven't heard Rock and Roll Part 2 in a very long time. I mean, they don't play it at sporting events anymore, mostly because Gary Glitter was convicted twice of being a very bad person. So ultimately, Joker is a very well-made film whose craftsmanship is wasted on a nothing story. And it's a shame because this could have been something very interesting. Instead, it only thinks it's interesting.
No, go buy more pop figures, because that's all you seem to be able to grasp.
When you start attacking the inanimate object of the film or the idea of the film, did the director ever come out saying it's a deep film with undertones, you have to pay attention? It's like
not really.
I don't recall that at all, no.
Yeah, just because you don't understand the movie doesn't mean it's deep. It may be it can either mean the movie is really bad, or it means you actually do not understand.
Yeah, this is
like they want to tell us about TLJ, but TLJ is an objectively bad movie.
Yeah, think of
not that we don't understand it. It's because we understand it, we can see that it's so fucking bad.
Yeah, like imagine reading a Bulgakov or a T.S. Eliot poem and just not getting it. It's like, okay, I mean, if you don't get it, that's cool, but it doesn't mean it's a bad poem or a bad story. There are English majors and professors who study this stuff for a living. They say, look at this amazing stanza, or look at this this reference to this one thing in history and how he's describing it. And if you don't think that's beautiful, that's fine, but you can't deny that it was composed and written very well. And he's saying all these great things about the cinematography and this and that. And you're like, yeah, that's to me, that's secondary for a movie. That's like, I want it to look good. I want it to sound good, obviously. But if the story is not there, I don't really care. And that's why this sort of film appealed to so many people, because it was different. And it did it differently well. And I don't know why he was expecting a supervillain comic or whatever and saying, oh, well, it should have been like that. It's like, no. And what is this intention?
And that wouldn't have been a very deep movie either, likely.
Imagine who's the Rock playing in the new film he's coming out with, the DCU, Black Adam or something like that.
Black Adam, yeah.
Yeah, it's like if they don't make him interesting, and he's going to be this goofy-looking muscle man who's touting one-liners or whatever, that's not going to be fun. And comparing that to like Dr. Fate, I don't even know if they're going to face off against each other, but to get Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Fate is like, okay, That could work. If
Really? That's who they got.
oh yeah,
Damn.
yeah, all white haired or gray haired. Yeah, looks pretty good. So
Oh my god.
yeah,
Better be good if it's Brosnan.
he could pull it. He's got some acting chops. Yeah, he could do it. I think so.
I hope if they're getting Brosnan for Dr. Fate, they
But that's
better
what I
be
mean.
damn good.
If they could get the script right for him and for that character, Dr. Fate's a god. So it's like, okay, how do we write for that properly? I don't know. It could work.
Yeah, it's like how do you quantify that in the actual writing?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the key.
All right.
Really is that kid in high school who listened to one Rest of the Machine song and now all of a sudden knows
What?
everything about the real world, man. That's Joker in a nutshell.
Okay, no, that's
Oh god, that's
a
so dumb.
joke. That is the silliest thing in this whole production he's just created for us.
He's
What is
projecting his own stupidity.
Rage Against the Machine. It was the one everyone uses in their anime music videos. It's like, oh god.
What
The
is even the
movie-
point he's making there?
The movie was made by a man who created several comedies that pushed the line of comedy, and the whole reason for making it is because he can't push the line anymore. Otherwise, he's going to get canceled.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anyway.
Maybe it would have worked better if it actually leaned into the conventions of the source material instead of being embarrassed by the fact that this was a comic book. Embrace
source
it,
material?
learn from it. Sprinkle in some
That's
characters
the problem
or
with
other
the whole American
locations
comics.
from the source material to help flesh out the world better. Think about it. Something as simple as replacing Thomas Wayne with Batman could go a long way.
Are you what? Why? Why would you do that?
Why would Batman already exist before any of the supervillains?
This guy. I want a story about Batman. Why wasn't Batman in the Joker film? Like, dude, come on. Why wasn't Robin in the film? Why wasn't pick any character from the mythos
Yeah, why isn't Joker the illegitimate child of Batman?
or other weird crap? Like, dude, get over it. Get over your bias for 1 second and think, oh yeah, this is different. I don't even know how to make an analogy about food with this guy. He's expecting something.
Does anyone know his stance on TLJ?
Oh God, it's not ask.
Because if he liked that, there were lots of people who liked TLJ and disliked Joker.
Yeah, I know. Well, TLJ is polarizing. We know. Okay, this guy.
Yeah, so polarizing. It kind of destroyed Disney a little bit.
Well, yeah, but we didn't even know what they're doing lately for Star Wars. Aside from the animation, which I haven't watched yet. Okay, anyway.
You can have Batman be the reason Arthur loses his. You can have Batman be the reason Arthur's life ultimately takes the turn. It would offer a different and unique take on the dynamic between those two characters, and it could.
It's not about Batman, you retard. Holy crap.
Why is my Joker movie not about Batman? This is great.
What a retard. This is retard. This is actually retardation. He's like, oh, why can't I have X in my Joker film? It's like, it's not about X. It's about Joker. That's what's called Joker.
Yeah, and you are getting a different take on Joker.
It's like having a
You
chocolate
are
cake.
getting that.
And it's like, why can't my chocolate cake have a cake-sized Mars bar? It's like, what? No, it's chocolate cake. You don't put Mars bars in chocolate. Why would you do that? That's stupid.
Why is it not Bounty?
Or some other brand. It's like, dude, it's a chocolate cake. It's supposed to be how good is the chocolate? How good is the filling?
I wanted Bounty in my chocolate cake.
No, that's disgusting. Oh my God. He's whining. He's not getting what he wants. When he should be evaluating the thing for what it's worth. A Joker movie. A movie. You have all this lore to pull from. All this these expectations about Joker. Not Joker and Batman, not Joker and Harvey
In a
Dent
way-
and Joker and this and that. It's just Joker. That's it.
Is he in a way telling us that he doesn't want anything new?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's what I'm hearing.
I'm going so far. I'm going to say this guy is an actual man-child.
Kind of looks like it, yeah.
Well, when the first 20 seconds of the video, I was like, this feels a bit awkward. Like he's being very expressive with his face. So I'm like, why can't you just be honest and just say exactly what you feel without being emotional about it? Just be straightforward.
I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm just like, the thing for me is just like people just say, oh, Marvel is unoriginal. Marvel just does what it's in the comics. No. A lot of people seem to stealthily, conveniently forget that the MCU pretty much did have a decently creative leg to stand on when it started.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely tried to be faithful to the original source, yes, sure, but always tried to push boundaries and do more original stories with the pre-existing material.
Mm-hmm.
Say what you want. Say what you fucking want about the Mandarin twist in Iron Man 3. First of all, I'm just like, I'm glad that they actually tried something different. Like, whatever the situation might have been and all, because it's like if it was offensive or if it was a stereotype or something, or they just didn't want to do it. They at least, Shane Black at least tried to get something original out of it, and he did. And for my money, it was good.
All right. Here's Great Scott one more time. Thank you, sir. Bruh, is he going to ignore how different the film's take is on Thomas Wayne? Much like the Telltale game, it steers away from venerating Bruce's father. It's an interesting take that seems to have gone completely over his head. Well, yeah, that was his problem.
Exactly. That's what I was saying earlier.
He doesn't like the Thomas Wayne angle because it paints them in a different light.
Yeah, that's literally the entire argument I was saying earlier. The fact that there are certain elements that different versions bring up that put a whole new perspective on certain elements from mainstream versions.
Yeah.
And it makes you think.
Yeah, and Ken Kaneki in the chat says, I don't think that's a good argument. Just because you do something different doesn't mean it's good right now. Yes, that is true, because that's how the SJWs are ruining all the media. However, this is not a black and white issue where all new things are immediately bad, because we get accused by the SJWs to not like their stuff because allegedly we just don't like new things. That is wrong. We don't like bad things, badly made things, and we don't like propaganda. Joker isn't propaganda. Joker is an actual new take on something that is well done. And here we have an actual, whatever he is, not liking the new thing because it goes over his head.
Ah, jeez. Okay.
Yeah, my head.
Very interesting. As I've said previously, the best Joker stories are not about the Joker. They're about how the Joker affects the world around him.
And this is a story about the Joker.
He does do that.
And he does that as well.
That is kind of the fundamental idea behind the Joker, in a way. So because he is that crazy, he is that out there. He's intelligent, sure, but he can definitely get away with his own get carried away by his own madness.
Yeah, this is,
and that certainly has a massive, an incredible effect on any version of the DC universe, no matter where you look.
and this is a different take on the Joker character because he's not some super genius. He's not some chemist or failed mobster or whatever. He is just this crazy guy who's got problems. And
exactly, he's just a normal guy that's like society's like it's like the like we said earlier, the consequences of how broken the city and the whole system is. It gets to him. He's a direct byproduct of everything wrong in society at that point. And that could be any one of us. That could be anyone that's just fed up with everything wrong in the world and they just want to do something about it. explain. It's as simple as that.
I guess he wanted like Bruce to change or something. I don't know. This is little Bruce being affected by the TV results of some late night guy getting shot. Like, oh my god.
Well, that's a whole other point.
Yeah. Anyway.
And while this movie does touch upon that a little bit,
bit,
scratches
a little
the surface.
bit, really.
Something as simple as adding Batman to the movie could help dive deeper.
Shut up! This is so dumb. I can't believe this guy. I'm sorry. We're done. This guy. If only Batman was there, guys. We thought it was a better movie. Okay. He's 6 years old, or 7.
Yeah. It's like not even the reason for Batman existing in the first place has happened yet. Maybe a tease of it at the end. But
good lord, this guy's.
This is not, dude, you fucking idiot. This is nowhere near being about Batman.
Yeah, this is ridiculous.
The whole point about Kid Bruce being, well, at least for me, is like to demonstrate that the cause of, for one thing, something. How do I put it? It's like the system is that broken to the point where it's like I don't know if anyone else caught this, but this is pretty much the same reason for why Joker exists is eventually going to be the same reason Batman exists. The system and the city being so lost and so dysfunctional. And that's the one thing they wanted to establish there. Because we know the backstory. We know exactly how Batman is going to exist. That little Easter egg is just to prove that that's the one thing, no matter where you look, that's the thing they have in common. They both come out of a system that is just gone.
Yeah, and I cannot believe how much this movie went over his head. And that all these videos that we're watching, around the mark of the last 2 minutes, they start going completely bonkers. It's always around the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, this
literally just the one point of, if only Batman was in it.
Yeah, once he repeated himself, I think we're done. We know his bias has just blinded his judgment.
Come on, it's another minute.
No, we're done.
I was gonna say like keep going, but no, it's like we're done. Yeah. It's like that whole thing is a symptom of DC's moronic treatment of Batman. It's like, if only Batman were in it, it'd be better. It's like, no. Part of the reason why BVS sucked ass.
Oh boy.
Gotham for all of its faults shows Bruce seldomly in the early parts. At least the first 3 seasons, they show him seldomly, and it's all about Gordon and Bullock and how they are dealing with everything going on in Gotham and how corrupt it is.
Say what you want about them shoehorning Batman at the end. At least they had the restraint to leave it for the end.
Yeah, well,
it's a problem, sure, but they at least had the restraint to not do it like in the early show.
Gotham was a mixed bag. I enjoyed it for the most part. I didn't watch it all the way through, but the first few seasons I really liked it. So
I assume between Super Smallville and Gotham, you're still for Smallville.
Smallville, I know what it's like. I know the audience of Smallville. I know why it was made, and I would say the writing is probably better as a whole in Gotham, but individual episodes of Smallville I thought were really, really well done, and some of them were absolutely disgustingly dumb. So.
It's Superman. It was bound to happen at some point.
Yeah, it's going to be goofy as hell. You're like, okay.
It's like that's just an inherent thing with Superman specifically. There's always going to be those moments where it's like, what the hell is going on?
And we're talking about like 10 years of these actors' lives just go like continuous. So it's pretty long arcs and development of these people growing up as adults and trying to play high schoolers. It's like, oh boy. What a!
You can definitely tell that Smallville definitely put in the effort to build up to that last moment in the finale.
Yeah, but that was their philosophy: is no flights, no tights. And
until the last 5 seconds.
They did some flights just because it was a different Clark as a result of Red Kryptonite or whatever. So they try to get away with that a bit, and that made for an okay story. I was like, that's fine.
That was fine. It's like he's learning about his powers. That's okay.
Yeah. I mean, the very first moment we see Clark, he's hovering above his bed in the episode 1.
Yeah.
So, and that freaks him out. He never does it again. So.
Yeah. It's because
Gotham
he's supposed to stay. He's supposed to stay secret.
Yeah, and then it's like it gets out when he specifically becomes Superman. When the persona comes out, it's like you can tell Gotham really wanted to replicate the impact of Smallville's finale of finally showing some kind of like reveal of the actual character of the actual hero coming out. And it's like, no, Smallville did it better. Fuck you, Gotham.
All right. Anyway, let's keep going. Here's Joker, and here's the joke. And you can't see the meme. It's the actual Joker.
Oh, you're on memes?
Yeah, we're on memes. Yeah, we're done with the video.
Oh.
Forget that.
Yeah, we're fucking done.
I just wanted to say to Vision Productions in the chat, I don't think this guy wrote, these critics are so intellectually dishonest when it comes to Joker. I often wonder if it's intentional or they're actually that naive. I don't think this guy is intellectually dishonest because he's not intellectual at all. He's just not on that level. I think he believes what he says.
Yeah.
He just does not have the mind to comprehend this movie at all.
No, not at all.
And that's why he can't like it, because it misses the superficial childish elements that he needs.
Yeah. My thing about this movie, for my money, just to go to the memes already, it's like for my money, this Joker movie pretty much proves everything that is wrong with the woke shit.
Yeah, so I don't think
we finally actually did get something completely original instead of just a carbon copy of something else but worse, and we liked it. It was actually good.
Yeah,
and it's like that's what we want. We want shit that's well done, that's well written, well executed, and if it's such a drastic take, as long as it's good, people aren't going to care otherwise. As long as it's good.
Yeah, and I would say he's this guy we watched. He's also not malicious. He's just disappointed because he needs the easy.
Yeah.
He needs the easy movie.
This is the argument from bias, but I was about to make the argument from adaptation, because when you make a statement about adaptation, you have expectations either way. So it's a bias or expectations of this or that. It doesn't really matter. So in this case, because Joker's so unknown, you're free to say, well, what if this happened? What if he was like that? And that's kind of the idea. I think that's the premise, is having an unknown variable like the Joker. How would we play that out in a story? And he took a darker turn. He took a very serious contemporary setting and played with it. So why not? Anyway, back to memes. When your older sibling gets in trouble for something that you did, so they took the Joker and just shrunk him.
That's pretty much family life, sibling life in a nutshell.
Yeah. Oh dear. You know, I live in something of a society myself. That's great.
I think Willem Dafoe had to have been a contender for the Joker at some point for some movie. I don't remember.
See that YouTube video someone put together of Willem Dafoe? I can't remember what movie he was in, but he's talking about his teeth. And it's Willem Dafoe tries out to be the Joker, whatever the scene is. It's amazing. It is so well done.
I'd at least give Dafoe a shot at attempting to do his own Joker.
Oh God, he'd be perfect.
I think he'd do it rather well.
He would be fantastic. I don't know how old he is right now, but I think he could pull it off.
Yeah, I think ultimately he'll still be more known for the Green Goblin. It's like the campiness aside, but he still did a decent job there too.
Oh boy, here we go. Phoenix, you just wouldn't get it. It's not that deep, man.
Joker
That's pretty much that one moment from the movie summarizes this entire thing. You don't get it. This doesn't get it at all.
All right. Oh no. What if Batman was in the Joker movie and caused his problems? Nerd coom time. Oh God.
No, it's like I'm glad I'm glad the only kind of reference to Batman is that they kind of show the Waynes walking in like some street and then the thugs behind them like looking. I'm glad that's the only like nod to Batman himself that's ever in that movie, and it was all the better for it.
All right.
So yeah, what the fuck?
All right. Whew. That's enough for me. I don't know about you guys. Oh, one more super chat from Vladimir Dragunov. Just tuned. How stupid was it? This was stupid. This was stupid. It wasn't that stupid. It was just dumb. It was this guy's opinion. You can't see past his nose, and he liked it, but then he didn't like it at all later, as he explained himself.
And then the final nail in the coffin, the whole, what if Batman was in it?
Again.
Fuck that. Yeah, and also this one that just came in, it's like, for my money, I would kind of say that that's where he crossed the line. That's where, I'd say that was the first step in the transition.
The first one, he gets kind of a pass on because the guy was on him, so he shot him reflexively.
Yeah, this is still in emotional dysregulation and agitation and adrenaline and everything.
Whenever the guy's running
Alpha
away,
is just, and Alpha is he's not able to really control himself.
Yeah, for those who don't, understand, it's like we got another one in the stream memes. It's a screenshot of the scene where Arthur, the second time Arthur uses the gun, if I remember correctly, is that they're at the staircase. The third time, okay. The third time he uses the gun, it's like the guy kneeling. It's like on the staircase, like on the ground. It's like and Arthur ready to shoot him. That scene is like, I think that was really like intentionally the first step for him actually becoming the Joker.
Isn't he just doing Batman's job?
well, let's not get into that though. That's a bit of a slippery slope. Just with just in the Batman mythos in general, I'm just like, I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm just like, that's kind of muddy water. That's kind of muddies the waters at this point, especially since this is a very different take.
Just you guys remember, this was the second voted video to cover. We were going to cover a Cuties video, but that was just not a good idea.
Nope. Nope.
Never in a million years.
I wouldn't even pirate that shit.
Yeah. And this guy has already been lambasted, who had this take on Cuties by a bunch of other YouTubers. We could do it too, but it's just, do we really want to go that way? I don't think so. So anyway, keep the suggestions coming. We do try to go through as many as we can on the list because you can keep submitting them. And maybe that Cuties will pop up again. I don't know. Maybe we will watch another Cuties in the future. It's up to you guys. So thank you anyway. That was not bad because good movie, bad take, and easy for us to take apart. Not too long. So thank you so much for your suggestions. Keep them coming. Have yourself a great evening. We'll talk to you real soon.